This is Prince of Persia. While it might not look like much now, the game was revolutionary when it first arrived on those chunky Apple II computers in 1989. Sure, punishingly difficult platformers were all over the scene in those early days, but Prince of Persia was pushing boundaries in the art department like no game before it. And while we have those artistic innovations to thank for a huge amount of breakthroughs in the industry, the lessons we learned from Prince of Persia are being slowly forgotten, and if we're not careful, they'll be totally lost to the sands of time.
Go for that sword again, and I swear I'll break your arm.
Again? If you pull the sand!
But before we slide into the history and legacy of Prince of Persia, consider liking this video and hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next release. You might have heard of a process called rotoscoping. The animation technique was first developed by Max Fleischer back in the early 1900s and debuted in Fleischer's influential TV series Out of the Inkwell in 1915. Originally thought up as a way to cut corners during the animation process, rotoscoping meant recording a live actor, projecting that image onto a glass panel, and then tracing over the footage to create an animated scene. And as it turned out, this wasn't actually any faster than typical frame-by-frame animation. It was, however, easier for non-artists to master. And it did produce some uniquely smooth and dynamic movements, which were used to great effect in classic films like Snow White, Gulliver's Travels, and Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. Your mileage may vary on that last one.
I am a servant of the secret fire. You cannot pass. Go back to the shadow.
You might be wondering why you're getting a lesson in film history on a video about Prince of Persia, and the reason is Jordan Mechner. Mechner is an artist who began his career in video game design with 1984's Karateka, a martial arts game for the Apple II. Wanting to ensure that the karate moves in his debut game were as accurate to real life as possible, Mechner quickly grew frustrated. He was a programmer, not an animator, and he wasn't able to replicate the fluidity of real martial artists under the technical constraints of the Apple II's hardware. But Mechner had a vision. So being directly inspired by those Disney films of old, but probably not Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, he started experimenting with rotoscoping. Using footage of his own karate instructor, Mechner went to work. To quote the man himself in a 2017 Forbes article, "I shot on a Super 8, loaded the film into a Moviola, and traced the frames on tracing paper. The next step was to somehow get the tracings onto the computer. For this, I used a gadget called a Versa writer, which was basically two potentiometers hooked together to make a pantograph that plugged into the Apple's game paddle port." And if that sounds like a lot of ancient technobabble, you're right. But the point is that Mechner literally had to invent his own technical method of making and porting animation onto his machine. He went to great lengths to create these sweeping martial arts movements, and he applied them to the character models during gameplay and in the game's cinematic cutscenes, giving Karateka's movement a level of polish and realism that was practically unheard of in 80s video games. It was this inspired artistic choice that turned Karateka into a wildly popular release.
I became a #1 bestseller. Instead of going out and getting a job, I actually had the luxury of thinking, what do I want to do next?
And emboldened Mechner to try rotoscoping in future projects. It just so happens that his next project was Prince of Persia, and he was going to push everything he'd learned to the next level. Prince of Persia is undoubtedly a great game. This Arabian Nights-inspired action-adventure saw our unnamed hero climbing, tumbling, and sword-fighting his way through an increasingly difficult series of trap-laden levels to save a princess. Like we said up top, this wasn't exactly a unique concept, but Prince of Persia's signature feature wasn't its story or its genre, it was its movement. The physicality of our main character was unbelievably smooth. Even the way he skidded to a stop felt strangely tactile, and it greatly enhanced the feeling of being on a grand, swashbuckling adventure, which is quite a feat when you remember people were playing this game on a computer that looks like this.
Now, which one would you rather take home?
This time, to achieve the look and feel Mechner was going for, he traced the swordplay in The Adventures of Robin Hood and recorded his 15-year-old brother running around their yard on their brand new home video camera. But this modern tech didn't make things much easier. To quote Mechner again, "It was a laborious process. To get the first simple cycle of 8 frames of a character running, it took weeks of setup and tool building, followed by days of work. Each frame had to be captured and cleaned up by hand, pixel by pixel. Prince of Persia's environments may not look particularly impressive by by modern standards, but the movements are still stellar all these years later. More than that, Prince of Persia led by example, and the rest of the industry followed suit, finding new and interesting ways to work within the boundaries of gaming hardware. Just 3 years after Prince of Persia's release, Mortal Kombat digitized footage of live actors to animate their characters in what is widely considered to be an early version of modern motion capture technology in video games.
I was in an arcade and some guy turned to me and he goes, "Oh, you should play this game, it's pretty fun." And I was like, why don't you take a look at it? You know,
I am the game.
I am the game. I am in the game.
And things just exploded from there. Over the years, motion capture, or mocap, has become the prevailing method of video game animation, and more modern titles have only cemented it as not just the best, but the only choice for dev teams looking to create realistic experiences. Developers can now document an actor's movements down to the most minor facial twitches, track their eyes with perfect precision, and map their performance onto a hyper-realistic 3D model. And it's not even just limited to human actors. Hell, Rockstar mocapped a horse. Motion capture is both faster and easier than any other method of video game animation by far. And yet, it creates a more believable image than anything players have seen before. We've come a long way from the days of Jordan Mechner and his Super 8 camera, but in the process, we've lost something intangible and invaluable. Let's go back to that Forbes article and quote Jordan Mechner one last time. On his rotoscoped animations of Prince of Persia, Mechner said, "The moment I finally saw the character running across the screen, I got chills. As rough and pixely as it was, I recognized my brother's way of running, his physical personality. It was the illusion of life." There's an undeniable artistry in each frame of motion in Prince of Persia. You can see the blend of life and art filtered through the restrictions of the hardware, but those restrictions don't hinder the experience. They add to it. Mechner's human ingenuity combined with his creative spirit and sheer force of will to make something truly memorable and timeless in a way that modern games and big-budget studios can't quite capture. At the end of the day, video games are pieces of art, and art isn't supposed to be fast and easy to create. Now, we know that not every game that uses motion capture technology is bad or lazy. No, obviously not. And that's also not to say that art is dead or anything so melodramatic. Cuphead, Hollow Knight, and its sequel Silksong are gorgeous, hand-drawn masterpieces. The master's pupil was lovingly hand-painted over the course of 7 years, and the upcoming Out of Words makes heavy use of stop-motion animation. Artistically ambitious games come out all the time. They just tend to be indie games made by small teams, not beholden to the whims of CEOs and shareholders. When you're making games purely because you love them and want to see how far the medium can be pushed, you have a lot more freedom and room to experiment. But when developers on a deadline have to choose between inventing new methods of artistic expression in interactive media or slapping a few dots on an actor's face, most of them are going to choose the dots. And suddenly everyone stops innovating and the broader industry stagnates. Today, Prince of Persia is a long-running franchise. After over 30 years, it spawned more than 10 games. It even has a movie that's best left in the same memory hole we left Bakshi's Lord of the Rings in. While the games dropped the rotoscope animation almost immediately, the franchise's longevity is a testament to the staying power of that first entry in the series. And it's a testament to pushing creative boundaries even when there's a simpler solution at hand. And well, that's all we have for you today, but before you go, we want to hear from you. Do you miss the days of creatively done animation, or are you content with realistic mocap? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for tuning in to Nerdstalgic Gaming. If you liked what you saw, be sure to let us know by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel.